Today, we are diving into the epic story of Iceland. I mean, this is a nation literally forged in geological violence, settled by Vikings, and defined by this fierce, just relentless spirit of resilience that has seen it through some absolutely unimaginable hardships. So let's get right into it. You know, to really understand Iceland, you can't start with the people. You have to start with the land itself. Geologically speaking, this place is a newborn. It's sitting right on top of the mid-Atlantic ridge, meaning it's literally being torn in two as the North American and Eurasian plates drift apart. This creates this constant, churning hotbed of volcanic and geothermal activity. It's a land in a perpetual state of being created. And because of this wild geology and its super remote location way up in the North Atlantic, Iceland just sat empty for thousands of years. While entire civilizations were rising and falling all across Europe, this massive island was just waiting in silence, one of the last true blank spaces on the map. Well, that all changed in the late 9th century. The Vikings arrived, and that marks the real beginning of Iceland's human story. So, starting around the year 874, Norse chieftains started showing up. A lot of them were actually fleeing this power consolidation happening back in Norway under King Harald Fairhair. And get this, they weren't just raiding, they were looking for a new home, a place where they could farm and build a brand new society far away from any royal authority. They brought their families, their livestock, their entire culture to this completely empty land. And what they built there was, well, it was pretty remarkable. By the year 930, they'd established something called the Althing. It was this annual open-air assembly where free men gathered to make laws and settle disputes. Now think about that for a second. This wasn't a kingdom, there was no monarch, it was a commonwealth. This pioneering experiment in self-governance makes the Althing one of the oldest parliaments in the entire world. But this golden age of independence, well, it didn't last. Internal conflicts started to weaken the Commonwealth, and that led to a long, dark period of foreign rule and just immense hardship. And this decline, it unfolded over centuries. In 1262, Iceland submitted to the King of Norway. Then later, through all these royal unions, control passed over to Denmark, which imposed this crippling trade monopoly that just completely stifled the economy. And as if that wasn't bad enough, nature itself decided to turn against the islanders. Yeah, in 1783, the Laki volcano erupted. And this wasn't just lava. The volcano spewed poisonous gases and ash that blanketed the island and actually spread all across Europe. The eruption completely devastated farms, it poisoned the land, and wiped out the vast majority of all the livestock on the island. The result was a truly horrific famine. An estimated 25% of the entire population of Iceland starved to death. It was, without a doubt, the nation's darkest hour. But, and this is the story of Iceland, out of those ashes a new spirit began to rise. In the 19th century, inspired by all the nationalist movements happening across Europe, Icelanders began this long, patient fight to reclaim their freedom. And one man really came to embody that struggle, Jan Sigurðsson. He was a scholar, a statesman, and he led the independence movement, using historical and legal arguments to demand that Iceland's sovereignty be restored. Now, the path back to independence was slow and steady. It began with limited home rule in 1874. Then, in 1918, Iceland became a sovereign state, but it still shared a king with Denmark. The final, totally unexpected break came when Nazi Germany occupied Denmark in 1940, which just severed all ties overnight. So to stop a German invasion of Iceland, Britain, and later the United States, actually occupied the island. And even though it was a violation of Iceland's neutrality, this occupation turned out to be a massive blessing in disguise. It broke the last little bits of Danish control, and by injecting huge amounts of money and jobs into the economy, it ended the Great Depression and sparked this unprecedented economic boom. With Denmark still under occupation, and Iceland now self-governing and actually prosperous, the time was right. In a 1944 plebiscite, the Icelandic people voted, I mean, just look at those numbers, overwhelmingly to become a fully independent republic. On June 17th, which is now their national holiday, the modern Republic of Iceland was born. So how has that historical DNA of independence and resilience shaped modern Iceland? Well, it's turned it into this small nation that consistently, and I mean consistently, punches far above its weight on the world stage. Which brings up this fascinating question, right? In the post-war world, how could a tiny nation with no military whatsoever protect its interests against a global superpower? The answer came during something called the Cod Wars. From the 1950s all the way to the 70s, Iceland kept extending its fishing limits to protect its most vital resource. And this brought Icelandic Coast Guard vessels, armed with little more than wire cutters to sever fishing nets, into direct confrontations with the warships of the British Royal Navy. It sounds crazy. And, incredibly, Iceland won. So how? How did they pull that off? They leveraged their ultimate bargaining chip, the vital NATO airbase at Keflavik. By threatening to close that base, which was absolutely critical for monitoring Soviet submarines, Iceland basically forced its much larger allies to pressure Britain into backing down. It was brilliant. And this pioneering spirit, it wasn't just about politics, it extended to social progress too. In 1980, Iceland made history by electing Vigdís Finnbogadóttir as president, the very first democratically elected female head of state anywhere in the world. That same spirit of resilience was tested yet again in 2008. A massive financial crisis caused Iceland's entire banking system to completely collapse. It was a devastating blow. And yet, in a story that just echoes its entire past, the nation endured, it rebuilt, and it recovered once more. From volcanic eruptions and foreign rule to naval standoffs and financial ruin, Iceland's history is an incredible testament to survival and resilience. It really leaves us with a final thought. For a nation so defined by its ability to overcome the impossible, what great challenge will it conquer next?